Hello guys, it's Obley here with the Frost Death Knight guide. In today's video I'm going to run through the Breath of Sindragosa spec, go through the talents, the gear, the rotation, the buff upkeep, everything you need to know in order to do a whopping amount of damage with Breath of Sindragosa. So these are the talents that I run with Breath of Sindragosa spec. In patch 11, Anti-Magic Zone doesn't actually generate any runic power now, so I don't bother with assimilation or anything like that. You can go into obliteration in patch 11 with Breath of Sindragosa now, which is cool. Don't bother going with Chill Streak or anything like that. I just find that the Icy Death Torrent and Smothering Offense is just way better. Alright, so for the hero talents, I run Deathbringer, Reaper's Mark paired with Painful Death and Wither Away. They're the only two choice nodes you really need to worry about. With Swift End, you don't need the additional cooldown reduction because you always pair Reaper with Pillar of Frost anyway. And then the Wither Away, you don't really tend to use Dark Talons. It sims a little bit better to go with Wither Away instead. Deathbringer does actually have some interaction with Breath of Sindragosa as well. Because of Reaper's Mark, Obliterates are cheaper and generate more runic power per rune because of this, and therefore it makes it easier to keep up breath. One last thing to note is the Gathering Storm talent. Now this can be refreshed, so if you are able to extend this for long enough and just press Remorseless Winter again, it will just refresh its full duration. So if you're on 1 second, press Remorseless Winter, it will be a 10 stack Gathering Storm for 8 seconds. That's huge. That is something, a buff you want to keep. You want to track that pretty much at all times. We'll go over buff tracking a little bit later. The stat weights on your gear, you want to have as much crit as physically possible, followed by mastery, and then haste, and have as little versatility as possible. And you don't actually see this stat here because I have none. For gems and enchants, you're mainly just looking for crit on the rings, crit mastery for your gem, but you do want to have at least one primary stat and critical effect gem in there too. For your trinkets, you're going to be wanting to run either a Treacherous Transmitter or a Mark of Cardross. Now, Treacherous Transmitter is better if you can be quick with the game. If you're on top of whatever game the trinket gives you, it gives you a massive buff. There we go, almost 15,000, 14,000 main stat there. You can play the game, save the buff for when you actually press your breath. So for example, if it gives you jump 3 times, you could jump 2 times, jump your 3rd time when you pop. If you don't want to do that, then a Mark of Cardross is still good. For the secondary trinket, you'd want either Spelunking Waning Candle if you don't have very much crit, or an Arakara Sackroot Egg. I got this candle when I didn't have enough crit, however I do now, so I'm looking to replace that. You're going to want to use 2 dual wield weapons here. Having the additional enchant is actually a little bit better than having a two-handed weapon in there. The dual wield sims better, and then having an additional enchant too just makes it the clear winner here. So the next thing we'll go over is the opener. It's relatively simple, only takes a little bit of prep, and then once you're in it, you're just spamming Obliterate. But in order to pull here, I'm just not going to use my Treacherous Transmitter because not everybody will have it, but if you were to have this, you would do that first. You know what buff you're playing with, but you go in A-Bombling first, Remorseless Winter, Deathbringer, 1 Obliterate, and then I like to put Death and Decay down just to added haste, do my burst macro. So now I've got that. My burst macro is just Empower, Pillar and Breath all at once, as well as a racial. And now I'm just spamming Obliterate. I'll only use Howling or Remorseless if I drop, if I'm above 60, sorry. Otherwise, you just won't be able to keep up. With Horn of Winter, you want to be pressing that button around about 60 runic power, or if you know that you need to refresh your Remorseless Winter or put another Frost Fever debuff via Rhyme proc. If you know that that's coming up, then Horn of Winter first, and then you can spend those afterwards. During your time waiting for a breath to come back, you might find that your Pillar of Frost and your Reaper's Mark will come back early. Now you want to just send these on cooldown. You want to make your breath wait for those two, not the other way around. You don't hold Reaper and Pillar for breath. You send those two and send them all at once on the next time round. The 2 buffs you always want to be keeping track of is Icy Talons and Bone Grinder. If you have a high stack of Bone Grinder, then it might be more beneficial to just press a Killing Machine proc than anything else, just to get yourself that 5 stack buff. Alternatively, if you have 7 stacks of Icy Talons, it's very difficult for you to get 7 stacks again, therefore you want to keep that up as long as possible. Your rotation outside of breath is pretty simple. you're just making sure you don't overcap your runes and don't overcap your runic power. A go in pillar with no breath would just look something like this. Generate killing machine. There we go. Spend howling. If you've got killing machine procs, just spend them because you might be able to get back-to-back ones. As soon as you don't have a killing machine proc, that's when you're frost striking, and you're also looking to frost strike to upkeep icy talons. That's pretty much it. When there's no cooldowns going, you're pretty much just doing that, just keeping your buffs up, trying to sort of fish for more bone grinder procs so that you can try and get a bone grinder, a 5-stack for your next burst window. But pretty much it. You see, juggling these two resources. The rotation for single target versus AoE is pretty much the exact same. The only thing you're doing is putting down a death and decay first before you send your full burst. It's really tricky to find out which target would be the best target for Reaper's Mark, as realistically you want it to explode when it's below 35% health just for its maximum damage benefit, but in an AoE pack, maybe in Mythic Plus, you're not really going to have time or the pleasure of a choice, so just send it on whatever you think would survive the longest. You want to make sure that you're always aiming your Reaper's Mark in the direction of mobs too, because it will send out a wave of souls and actually does quite a lot of damage. So just to reiterate that point, if your runic power is below 60, then you can't really afford to not be spamming Obliterate. You need to just spam that button. If you go over 60 runic power, then you can afford to press a Howling Blast proc, Remorseless Winter refresh, or if your target is below 35%, pop Soul Reaper on there. Having crit is what makes Breath of Sindragosa really strong. If you don't have a lot of crit, I would suggest playing Obliteration instead, because you do need a lot of crit in order to fully take advantage of the Breath of Sindragosa spec. So that's everything you need to know about the Breath of Sindragosa build for Frost DK. Please head over to my Twitch at @obli_wow for more Death Knight gameplay. Thanks very much for watching. See you around.